Okay, so we're going to go through a set of issues that were sort of dangling threads or points of confusion in last lecture. Some of you may remember that I used some commands to find out, I used a command in the shell, this interactive shell where I can type a command, see the results, type a command, see the results. I issued some commands that got me information on other commands. They let me know, for example, commands that might copy a file. How would I do that? Can anyone, we talked about a couple options there. Okay. Can anyone give me a command type? If I wanted to find commands of relevance that have the word copy, that are associated with copying, C-O-P-Y, what could I issue on the command line here? Yeah, exactly. Okay, so one issue would be apropos copy. And I see a whole bunch of stuff coming up. Another option would be to do man minus k copy. Another what is copy. And these differ a little bit in terms of whether that's for a whole word and so on. But big picture, folks, these are incredibly useful resources to identify. So up came some things you recognized, and evidently some things that you're a bit confused about. So over here we have the name of the command. Some of these are actually functions you can see, you can call. Others are commands you can type in the Unix shell. And we have some brief definition of what it does, what its job is. And then there's this thing in between, which I kind of mumbled about. I actually said something about it, but I didn't really explain it. Does anyone remember what I said about that thing in the middle, the thing in parentheses there? It's a section number. Section number. Many of you apparently were wondering, well, what's a section? After all, some of these are have section number 1, section of 2. Now, if I want to see these in more, well, without privileging anyone, I'll just do this. If I wanted to see this, all this kind of came up on the screen, boom, just all at once. And there's probably a lot of stuff that scrolled off the screen. How do I want to see it, the entirety of what was shown, but I want to see it kind of page by page by page, so I can fill the whole screen and then go to the next whole screen. How would I do that? Okay. Yeah, in some shells you can go like this and so on. But a more reliable way that doesn't depend on the vagaries of how much Putty remembers or what have you, or Xterm or whatever your shell of choice is, and in fact doesn't even depend on that feature, would be to use another command called less or more. Yeah, there's actually two commands. One is called more, and one is called less. And their job in life is to take in some information to be shown and allow you to navigate it piece by piece back. The difference, well, one of the salient differences, perhaps the most obvious one if you start using them, is that more allows you to kind of go page by page further through it, one by one. Less allows you to go backwards as well. Okay? It's not, I repeat, not the case that less goes from the bottom and more goes from the top. But we'll see some commands to do that later. But less allows you to go backwards. So how would we get the output, ladies and gentlemen? This is by way of an example here. I like squeezing in points of reflection and opportunity to exercise previous things into examples here. If I wanted to get whatever came out of this to display it in less, how would I do that? We saw that last time through the use of some way to take output from one command, output this in this case it's what is, and somehow get it into more. How do I do that in Linux? A pipe. I use a pipe character. And what's the character? It's not particularly sort of deep, but what's the way in which we happen to denote pipes in Linux? Okay, so yeah, it's a vertical bar. I mean, on some keyboards it's shown as this, and it's often the shifted backslash character on the keyboard. But here we can go, so if you look at my keyboard, that symbol, which is sometimes drawn with a sort of little space in the middle, is just shifted of the backslash character. I could do this, and then what do I type? If I want to get into less, say, type less, yeah. So what this is saying is, hey, execute this and then put it through that, and in other words, let less be the one who shows it to me. So this is showing it, okay, this is great. Oh my gosh. Excuse me. So this is a confusing thing. I'm going to start with more here. Okay. So I'm doing okay. Now that's mighty interesting because I'm wondering if this is actually okay. Pardon me, folks. That's an unexpected thing from my. There we go. Yeah. So we're gonna, instead of doing it with what is, we'll do it with the other one. So I'll start with this for less. Okay. Here we go. So I just piped it to less. Let me show you what I did. This is what I did. Man minus k copy into less. And so all the output from this guy, standard out in this case, is going to go into less. And I can say, okay, fine. And this is what's shown to me. And then I can go through this page by pressing the space key. And I can do various other things like search in it and that sort of stuff to sort of highlight certain characters with a slash, a forward slash. But fundamentally what we're going to be doing here is going through all the output where we have information with the word copy on it. And apropos, for example, it'll be a slightly different list, but once again, it's all these things with copy in it, copy directory, etc. Okay. Now, for each of these, we see different section numbers associated with them. A lot of these are in 3. If we go down, we will see, here's 1 and 1, familiar CP or CPIO. Okay, with more I can't go backwards, but with less I can. Okay, so this is going into less. If I did into more, then I can go forward, but I can't go back. I can't press a B key. With less, I can press B, and I can go forward, and I can go back up to the top. Okay, okay. So that's great. But what are these sections? Why, for example, does down here at the bottom, it lists some things associated with 1, like SCP and so on. Well, we can see what these stands are, or we can see what section this is by manning man. So if I want to find information out about how man exhibits information, I could say man, and if we scroll down, we'll see there's manual sections here. And these sections define the sorts of information that are available. I'm stepping through this by doing a forward space. I can alternatively go line by line by pressing enter, okay? And you can see these are various standard sections. So 1 means it's a user command on the Unix shell in this case. 2 is a system call, something that Unix takes care of handling. It's a call to like open a file in Unix. C library functions are standard things C programs can call, and there's various other like system administration tools that the average user won't be using, etc. So that's what those sections mean. And optionally, if you want to look up a command in a specific section, you could actually say man section 1, for example, CP. And this gets me the definition of CP in section 1. I could ask to see that in section, say, 3, but it says there is no entry in section 3. This may seem a puzzling functionality, but sometimes the commands define multiple sections which happen to have the same name. Okay? And being able to specify the particular one you're interested in, you can save yourself a bit of time. You might also want to do something like man minus k, instead of man minus k CP as a whole, I might want to do man minus k 1 CP, I would have expected that to work properly. Let's try this. Minus k CP. No, okay. So I would have thought that would have restricted it, but it doesn't. So this is a situation where we use section numbers and where we can request information on a particular section. It provides that information to let you quickly scan through, among other things, what types of things are the ones of relevance to you. Now, we'll see a way with typing later that we could just see the ones in a certain section. I thought that was a built-in function, but if it's not, we can do man minus k CP, and we can pipe it to something called grep, which will look for just things that include the number 1, for example. And here's a whole bunch with the number 1, or a variant of the section. This related to POSIX, I believe, 1P. Okay? So, in short, when we're using manual sections, sometimes it's useful to only scan those that are relevant because they're from the right section. Things you want to type into the shell. Does that make sense? Okay. So let me stop that.